Namaste and welcome everyone to this special Satsanga. I want to share with you today an important topic that is growing in popularity. Many of us hear the term yoga constantly today. We see it on billboards, in magazines, and we see also images related to yoga in all types of media and in all types of wellness, fitness. We see these yoga postures, which in many ways are becoming iconic. They're almost becoming symbols that define yoga. What I want to speak about is a topic with regards to yoga and its use as a therapeutic tool. Why is that growing today? Why is that so popular today? Why does everyone look to yoga as a therapy, as a form of healing the body, the mind, for overcoming tension and issues related to the body and mind? Well, let's look at the history and go back about a little over 100 years or so. And it was at the turn of between the 18th and 19th centuries, when Vivekananda, Swami Ramtirth, and later Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, when he arrived in 1920, that span of about 30 years between the 1890s and the early 1920s was a very pivotal time in our Western evolution and the first seeds, if you will, that were planted of the great ancient wisdom culture that embodies more than just yoga. In fact, if we look at the speech, a very famous speech that Vivekananda gave in 1893, he doesn't mention yoga, doesn't mention the postural tradition, but he focuses on Vedanta, the philosophy that underlies and captures the essence of Veda. Veda is the great knowledge, the great body of knowledge that extended thousands of years during an era when human consciousness was very elevated, very high. It was referred to as the Golden Age, or Satya Yuga. And Vivekananda spoke of this Vedanta, this truth that underlies all religious traditions and is the basic desire that all humans seek, to discover the true self. So where does the postural aspect come in? If Vivekananda is one of the foremost spokesmen, if you will, spokesman of Vedic culture and Indian wisdom, and also Ramtirth, he never spoke of postural yoga. Both men had high levels of consciousness, had the full realization. And even Yogananda didn't emphasize much, although it was with Yogananda that the more integral and the more holistic application of yoga began. There is some evidence that asana was being practiced during the early 1900s in various parts, especially in California and San Francisco, New York City, and other cities throughout the country. And we see that. And it was connected to Tantra, very much so, as it is derived from the Tantric body of teaching. And rightly so, when we look at the practice of postural yoga in those times, it was also beginning to turn towards the external. Even though when you look at yoga from the postural tradition of Tantra, we do not see any emphasis on fitness or wellness. In fact, the central focus of Tantra or Hatha Yoga is to unite the sun and the moon energies. Hatha. That it is essential to balance these two forces, one being solar and being predominant on the right side of the body. And it is referred to as the Pingala Nadi, and the other being lunar and associated to the left side of the body. And so the balance of these two forces was essentially the purpose of Hatha Yoga. The purpose of unifying these two energies produces elevation of consciousness, creates a balance within each and every individual, because we all have sun and moon within us. In some individuals, sun is more developed, they are more solar, they are more heated, more, if you could say, pitta, as Ayurveda refers to it, or some are more lunar, more feminine, more sensitive, and have that waning and waxing quality that is, according to Ayurveda, associated with Vata and Kapha. So this sun and moon balance is essential to Hatha Yoga. And Hatha Yoga essentially embraces 4 primary techniques. Postures, known as asanas, pranayama, which are the breathing techniques, and there are many of these breathing techniques. A few years back, I attended a small yoga conference in India, and I was fortunate to have met the organizer of the conference, who is the director and the guru of a very old school of yoga. And they taught postures, breathing techniques. They did a lot of work to examine many different texts, some known and some unknown. And one of the things that they've discovered in a very small but text that is not very known, one teacher, and this book is said to date close to 700 to 1,000 years ago, up to 60 different pranayamas, 60 different breathing techniques are described and taught. So it gives you an idea of the vastness of this tradition. The postures mainly mentioned in these texts are referred to as classical postures, but they focus more on postures that are connected to the spine, that strengthen the spine. They are done on the floor. They are often integrated with the lotus pose, the posture where the legs are folded. And so you have these four aspects: the postures, the breathing exercises, the mudras. Mudras are various gestures, hand gestures, eye gestures, and different positions that the body is placed in to climax the energy, to increase the energy of the prana in the body. And the last of these is the bandhas. These are three areas in the body where the energy, the prana, can be contained. They are mainly the root of the spine, the navel, and the throat and upper chest region. And interesting enough, these three bandhas, or we could call them vital centers, also correlate to the doshas in Ayurveda. And Ayurveda recognizes that the space from the base of the spine approximately to the navel is associated with vata. From the navel to the chest, the lower part of the chest, is associated with pitta, or fire. And from the chest up to the throat, the region is associated as related to kapha. So here we see the similarities, one of many that yoga and Ayurveda share. Yoga recognizes these three areas as vital. Ayurveda recognizes these three areas as correlated to the forces of air, fire, and water. So balancing the sun and moon is essential to Hatha Yoga, to the postural yoga, but balancing the three doshas is essential to Ayurveda. So yoga as a therapy, why is it that more and more people are being drawn to using yoga as a therapy? First and foremost, we have to understand our culture, the Western culture in particular I am speaking about, which tends to externalize and value things and life from a material perspective, from a scientific perspective, and from the point of the body, the physical body. So yoga, as it began to develop here in the West and spread throughout from the major cities into literally all parts of the United States and the world, began as a demonstration. Usually these postures were part of demonstrations before a lecture or a talk that Yogananda, for example, would give. And the postures demonstrated a control over the body, a strength over the body, a discipline over the body. So this mastery over the body is essential. It is a core theme of yoga that the mind is the master over the body. Essential to yoga is that the mind must control the body. The mind influences the body, essentially. The body is a reflection of our consciousness, of our mind. So, in doing these postures, we strengthen our concentration, and most importantly, willpower. Yoga as a therapy is about increasing willpower. What is willpower? Willpower is the energy that one has accessed from cosmic consciousness, from God. That power is limitless, it is eternal, and it is accessible to every single individual. So exercising will, through the postures, through the breathing exercises, is very beneficial. Very beneficial because it promotes spiritual evolution. Essentially, it is teaching us that consciousness enters the mind and body, and that consciousness comes through in how we use and how we care for this body. Therapy is essentially an Ayurvedic term. Therapy is not a concept or an intention of yoga. Yoga's purpose, again, is to unify. First and foremost, again, it's balancing the sun and moon energies, and then ascending that prana, that life force, upwards. When we come into a physical body and we're born again, consciousness descends. It comes into the vessel. The purpose of life is to ascend that consciousness. That is the purpose of yoga. In an effort, whether it be in the postures, the breathing exercises, the lifestyle of yoga, and all of the great principles of yoga, the idea is to send that consciousness higher and higher and higher until samadhi is established, enlightenment is established. Is that therapeutic? Well, yes, essentially it is. It's a longer path to therapy because it is addressing the very core karmas, the very core obstacles, constructs within the mind that influence physiology, that influence our entire biology. So, we must manage consciousness to have evolution, but also to bring us therapy. The term that Ayurveda uses for therapy is chikitsa. So, does following a yogic or spiritual approach to yoga, which those two words are somewhat synonymous. Lead to therapy? Yes. The basic point is that therapy of the body cannot exist separate of the mind. That's first and foremost. Therapy, healing of the body, cannot exist separate of the mind. I'm sure, and I've seen it, where you can certainly practice postures to improve back pain, maybe improve the alignment of the spine and things like that. Without a doubt, it's effective. However, more chronic and complex and repeated issues that we see that are much harder to deal with, particularly issues that we see that have started at a younger age, maybe adolescent or teenage, it indicates that that karma and those physical issues were from a previous birth. They were developed lifetimes before. Karma cannot be changed right away. Some are born healthy, some are born with health issues. Some are born healthy and develop health issues. Some are born with health issues and slowly, over time, even within one lifetime, reduce the effects of those health issues. So yoga today has turned into a postural tradition. People define yoga in the West as the stretches, the postures. You're so flexible, you're so strong. But do not understand that yoga has more to do with changing the mind, balancing the mind, than it does healing the body. There's at most 3 to 5 essential hatha yoga, tantric yoga, or postural yoga texts. Of the thousands of yogic texts that exist, the West has become fascinated with the idea that yoga is about the body, even though less than 3% of its teachings focus on the body. In fact, it's a later tradition. The tantric tradition is the youngest of the yoga tradition. If you go back to the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, dates back over 2,000 years. Before that, we have great kings like Krishna and teachers like Vashista, sages. Those are the later periods that go back 4, 5, 6, 7,000 years old. So the tantric tradition of the recent 700 or so to 1,500 years is the youngest of them all. And I would say this, it makes sense that this yoga, this postural yoga, this fascination with the body and making the body healthy and healing has a lot to do with the age that we're in. We're a very materialistic age. If we look at society, few have health. Even though they may appear healthy externally, I've learned this when you begin to ask questions, and people come to see me for counseling, and they fill out a form, And in the section, Reason for Consultation, they don't put much, and in some cases they leave it blank. But yet they've paid, they've signed up for a consultation, but yet there's no real clear reasoning why they want a consultation. So I ask them, do you have perfect health? Why is it that you really want to see me? Oh yes, no, I really do want to see you. There's a lot I want to improve. Okay, what is it? And they list a number of things. When I start to ask questions, I realize, and they realize, I help them understand that what they know to be health is very different from how Ayurveda defines health and what true health really means. So yoga is a therapy. Does it work? Yes, but we have to understand that the intention of yoga as hatha means to balance sun and moon. Well, where are these sun and moon energies? They're within the mind. Where is the mind? The mind is the astral body. It projects onto the physical body, the 7 tissues or dhatus. It influences systemic functions of the body. But sun and moon are within the astral body, the mind. Modern medicine looks at the mind as the brain, right? So you think of the mind, and it's something to do with what's in your head. But from the Ayurvedic and the yogic perspective, the mind is within the entire body. You have 7 centers, 7 chakras, and the deepest chakra is Muladhara, and it is earth in vibration. It is dense, it is heavy. So it descends, that consciousness, that mind realm goes all the way to the very base of the spine. So the entire human structure is the mind. And the mind is influencing all aspects of the body. You can tense your foot and relax your foot by exercising concentration and willpower that comes from the mind. So the mind is able to move energy, send energy, direct energy into all parts of the body. In so many cases, over and over again, year after year, I have seen so many souls embodied trying to fix their lives by stretching their bodies, by beating these bodies up, trying to find some contentment, some peace, some balance in their lives. Postures are helpful. They can help relax us. They can help calm the nervous system. Postures with pranayama are more effective. Postures alone, in the way that they have been taught throughout the Western fitness yoga movement, have many limitations. Postures alone without pranayama are half as valuable, half as effective. It simply becomes fitness. You may as well go to an aerobics class. You may as well go play tennis. It is not much different when you exclude pranayama. This means postures can be practiced, 1, 2, or 3. Postures should be held. Concentrate within that posture. Breathe within that posture. Then relax after the posture. After some moments of relaxation, the mind becomes more powerful. Why does relaxation after the pose make the mind more powerful? Because a relaxed mind is a calm mind. A calm mind is less reactive. Who reacts? Ahamkara. The ego reacts. So the less power we give to the reactive mind, the more power and connection we give to the will, to cosmic consciousness, and to allow it to enter our entire being. After those moments of relaxation, then pranayama comes in to work on the blood, to increase the strength of the blood, to oxygenate it, to pranify it. More important than just the mere circulation of the blood is to pranify the blood. What does that mean? That means that we convert oxygen, which animates this puppet body, and we convert that oxygen into life force. Life force that has the capacity to overcome diseases, life force that has the capacity to increase immunity, and life force that has the capacity to ascend. Sun and moon together unify. Sun is Pitta, moon is Vata and Kapha. The three forces of nature unify through the sun and moon channels and move up slowly. But where do we place the attention when we're in the pose? Focus on what catches your attention. Concentrate on a spot, like a laser, focus there. But then, when we relax after the pose, turn the eyes up, practice Shambhavi Mudra. Direct the eyes to the point between the eyebrows. It is there at the origin of the nose, where sun and moon become one. So we want the awakened energy, the awakened pranagni, prana and the fire within the prana, to ascend and move up to the highest point, to that point between the eyebrows. This is why postures with breathing exercises, and there are many, relaxation techniques, mudras, the eye gaze, the mudra focusing at the third eye, becoming still, perhaps locking the energy, practicing a bandha during that stillness. This creates an integral and integrative approach to Hatha Yoga. It is transformative. It is transcendental. That means that the way that you come in to practice transforms the way that you leave to connect and see the world. It transforms us because we're working with the postures to work with the energy of the body, to work with the prana of the body. This has nothing to do with how flexible you are. Some people will be very flexible naturally, and some people won't. There is no right way or wrong way to do a posture. The way to do the posture is your way. As long as you have focus, as long as you are energizing the relationship between your mind and body, as long as you're creating a strong bond between mind and body, this becomes the foundation for the elevation of consciousness. That, my friends, is a therapeutic yoga. That is the yoga chikitsa that can become so useful in Ayurveda and for treating Ayurvedic disorders. In the basic sense, when a person is struggling with vata conditions, we want to emphasize postures that are grounding, calming, strengthening, and that focus or address on the region below the navel, strengthening the legs, the buttocks, the hips, increasing flexibility in those areas, particularly the hip flexors, the hamstrings, the lower back, because this is where vata becomes predominant in the body. It constricts, it restricts, and locks the energy and blocks the energy in this region of the body. And this is referred to as apanavayu. It is the most common disruption of prana, the downward prana. It is the most common and likely affliction of vata dosha. For pitta, we want to emphasize the area in the mid-spine, thoracic spine, again between the navel and the chest. And this area should create greater circulation, flexibility, mobility. And we want to emphasize a letting go, a detaching attitude. So this is where the posture and the rest become very important. Why? Because certain people have a tendency that is fiery to push and push and over push and think that that pushing is giving them more benefit, that forcing, that intensity. Not so. It is actually moderation that works for the pitta. This is why twists are so important for all you pittas out there, yoga teachers, athletes. Twist is crucial. There are 3 primary twists. The classic twist, which is essentially the twist, is Ardha Matsyendrasana, the seated spinal twist. It is superb. It releases tension in the mid-spine. It has a cooling effect. But twist can also be done in the chair pose, so doing chair with the feet together, what I refer to as the closed chair position, and then bringing the hands into a prayer position and then twisting to one side by wedging the back of the arm on the outside of one of the thighs. Lunging twists are also very effective. So basically a lunge where one leg is forward, one leg is back, the knee is down, and then you twist to the outside, turn the body to the outside of that front thigh, that lunging thigh. So these twists are very good. Forward bends are very good because they're cooling, they're releasing tension in the spine, they're creating space. While Vatas do better with back bends, compressing of the spine like Ustrasana, like camel pose, Pittas do better with forward bends to release the pressure and the tension in the muscles. Kapha is in that upper region of the throat, the shoulders, trapezius, chest, where congestion builds up. So back bends are also beneficial for kapha. Standing poses are beneficial. Balancing poses, because they create heat. Kaphas need heat. Pittas need cooling energy. So when you practice Hatha Yoga to balance kapha, it is good to do sequences, movement sequences, like Surya Namaskar, like Chandra Namaskar. Flow through these movements with attention, with grace, but with a fervor, with a consistency, with a power of attention. And that continuous attention to each pose that you move through creates heat, creates blood flow, which is so essential for kaphas. Inversions are also very beneficial. Handstand, headstand, halasana, plow pose, sarvangasana, shoulder stand. All of these are beneficial. All types, all doshas, all beings can benefit from inversions, and all of these postures bring benefit to many people. But when we're focusing on a more therapeutic approach, using yoga as a therapy, we must understand Ayurveda and apply those therapies, apply those postures according to the doshic imbalance. Without knowledge of the two, you're just shooting at the sky. You don't have an understanding of what part of the spine needs to be targeted. Ayurveda brings the therapeutic component that yoga has never had. That's not the intention and the purpose of the yoga tradition. Yoga is a sadhana-based tradition. Ayurveda is a chikitsa, therapeutic-based tradition. Ayurveda aims to mainly bring balance to the doshas of the body within the digestive system and whatever aspects of the body those doshas have affected. Yoga's aim, again, is to raise our consciousness by unifying sun and moon, ascending that consciousness, and bringing the state of mind into a still place, a calm place, a reflective state. That reflective mind is essential to the yoga transcendence. It is liberating when the yogic principles and the yogic ideals are brought together with the Ayurvedic ideals. One without the other cannot exist. I have committed my lifelong work to this purpose alone. The balance and the unification of yoga and Ayurveda. Together, these two traditions can bring us tremendous wellness, healing, and evolution, because they create that balance between the sun and moon. Yoga is the solar tradition. It aims to unite us with the Atman, the true self, the indwelling soul. And Ayurveda recognizes that nature is within us. As Prithvi, Jal, Tej, Vayu, and Akash those 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, become the great system of Tridosha, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Those are the 3 forces of creation, destruction, preservation. They're universal. They're within us, and they're in all living things. This integral approach to yoga therapy is essentially yoga and Ayurveda. When someone says, I practice yoga therapy, I hope that they are understanding it as yoga, the solar tradition, and Ayurveda, the lunar path of healing. Sadhana is a wasting practice. It is a wasting aspect of yoga. It requires energy. It taxes us. It stresses the body. The postures are difficult to do. And this is why I recommend, once you understand your Ayurvedic constitution, to practice Prakriti poses. Poses that are targeting your specific constitution. Rather than waste your time going to a yoga class that teaches 20, 30, 40 postures and runs through them like a child at a candy store, it's better to focus on the ones that serve you best. You save time, you save energy. That vital ojas energy that is necessary to preserve, to contain. It is like a vessel, like a jar that holds the prime energy that we need for spiritual evolution. It is sad to see so many people trying to find contentment, peace, freedom, happiness by burdening these bodies. Look at the extremity of sports. Traditions, decades of sports that are filled with drug and alcohol abuse that damaged human bodies. Surely it's entertaining. But these individuals sacrifice their lives and damage this beautiful temple, this sacred body that could house the energy of the universe. It's within us. Yoga can be therapeutic if it embraces Ayurveda, Tridosha. Yoga can be a great therapy if it recognizes the importance of raising consciousness, if it recognizes karma and rebirth, and that what is good for one is not good for another. Your body, your mind is unique. Know it, understand it, and work with it in an integral way. So bringing these two traditions together can be one of the most powerful things in our lives. And I hope that many of you explore more of my teachings with regards to yoga and Ayurveda. Practice these systems, these traditions, in the integral way, the way they were intended. Yogananda knew Ayurveda. All the great ashrams today throughout India have an Ayurvedic aspect, a component to their ashram, whether it be through food or herbs or counseling. These traditions are meant to be together. They're from the same root. And they can no longer be separated. Let them be together forever. Start somewhere. Start with something. Don't wait. Do it early in the morning. It'll help you develop your discipline, your strength of mind. Try to do it consistently. Each day, each week. And let your practices bring you to a calm, reflective, and eventually to a meditative state, so that meditation becomes the highest practice to go beyond the body, to go beyond the mind. Only those 3, 4, or 5 scriptures that are studied in the Hatha Yoga tradition explain how to do these postures, what they symbolize, how they're connected to different archetypes or constructs of our consciousness. But yet, hundreds, thousands of scriptures explain through stories, through sacred principles, how to unravel the mind. Never forget that yoga as a therapy must honor some relationship to the mind, to consciousness. And to ultimately, and we will leave with this thought, may your yoga therapy change your attitude and bring about a positive attitude, a positive outlook on life, and seeing the good in all. So we'll end with a prayer. Take a moment, if you can, close your eyes. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. Sarvesham shantir bhavatu. Sarvesham purnam bhavatu. Sarvesham mangalam bhavatu. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. May all beings be happy. Sarve santu nirmaya. May all beings be free of troubles. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. May we see the good in all. Ma kashitu bhag bhavet. May sufferings end for all. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace to you, to your life. Peace to the lives of others. And peace to Mother Nature. Namaste.